Does the Federal Reserve only affect the USA or the entire planet?
The Federal Reserve affects the entire planet, not just the USA. Its monetary policies, like setting interest rates or managing the money supply, influence global financial systems because the US dollar is the world's primary reserve currency. When the Fed raises or lowers interest rates, it impacts international trade, investment flows, and the cost of borrowing worldwide. Countries holding US debt or those tied to the dollar in trade often adjust their policies based on Fed actions. It's a major player in the global economy.
So when we talk about national debt, we're actually just in debt to the money printing system, right?
Exactly. When people talk about national debt, it's largely the money owed to those who purchase government bonds, which are essentially loans to the government. A big chunk of this debt is owed to the Federal Reserve, other central banks, and private investors who fund it through these bonds. The money printing system, as you put it, is the mechanism that allows governments to create money by issuing debt. In the US, the Federal Reserve doesn't literally print money. It creates it digitally and lends it out. This system ties national debt to the financial framework built around central banks, interest rates, and credit. So yes, we're essentially borrowing against the system itself.
So the debt never really ends then if they keep printing more when you need more, right?
That's right. The debt cycle doesn't really end because the system is designed to keep growing. Governments issue more debt to fund spending or stimulate the economy. And central banks like the Federal Reserve support this by creating money as needed. Since interest keeps accumulating on existing debt, new borrowing is often required just to pay off old obligations. This creates a cycle where debt keeps increasing, but it's considered manageable as long as the economy grows and investors remain confident. It's like an endless loop of borrowing and repayment, but the system relies on constant motion to function.
So how do we break away from this? Because capitalism is kind of not working anymore. Like people are trying to get away from cheaply made stuff and overconsumption. So how do we break away from that?
Breaking away from this system would require a massive shift in how economies and societies operate. But you're right. Many people are already questioning overconsumption and the sustainability of capitalism. Some ideas for moving away from this cycle include 1. Focus on local economies. Supporting local businesses, farmers, and artisans reduces reliance on global supply chains and overproduction. It promotes sustainability and community well-being. 2. Circular economy. Moving from a take, make, dispose model to one that prioritizes reuse, recycling, and repair could reduce waste and overconsumption. 3. Alternative monetary systems. Some suggest using decentralized systems like cryptocurrencies or community-based currencies to create economic structures less reliant on central banks and national debt. 4. Degrowth movement. This promotes reducing economic growth as a goal and instead focusing on well-being, equity, and sustainability. It challenges the idea that endless growth is necessary for a good life. 5. Shift in values. If societies prioritize experiences, relationships, and sustainability over material goods, it could naturally reduce the demand for overproduction. 6. Universal basic income. Providing a baseline income for everyone might reduce the pressure to constantly produce and consume, giving people the freedom to focus on more meaningful pursuits. 7. Policy changes. Governments could implement regulations to discourage planned obsolescence, incentivize sustainable practices, and limit the power of corporations driving overconsumption. It's a complex problem, but a combination of individual choices, cultural shifts, and systemic changes could start to shift us away from the current model. What do you think resonates most with you?
I like the idea of universal basic income, but it kind of sounds a little bit like a gateway into communism.
Yeah, it does sound similar on the surface, but universal basic income, UBI, isn't inherently communist. It's more about ensuring everyone has a safety net while keeping a market-driven economy intact. The idea is to give people enough to cover basic needs, so they have more freedom to pursue jobs they care about, start businesses, or even contribute creatively without financial stress. Unlike communism, UBI doesn't eliminate private property or competition. It just redistributes some wealth in a way that could reduce inequality and overconsumption-driven stress. It's about balance, not total state control. That said, how it's implemented would make all the difference. worry about how governments might misuse the idea, and that's valid. What's your take? Do you see it as a step forward or risky?